Hey, good morning, everybody. Back on April 13th, I posted my 28 days later video where I answered tons and tons of your questions. But in the back of my head, I remember thinking how weird it would be if I ended up having a 28 weeks later video. Well, here we are. First off, the lockdown has evolved into a lot of different things depending on where you live. Here in California, the reopening is on a county by county basis. In Marin County, where I live, there's still an indefinite shelter in place order in effect, although I don't think any of us really know exactly what that means. As for reopening things, California has this color-coded system. California loves color-coding things. Purple is the most severe. That's where it's been for most of the past 6 months. That's where almost everything is closed except essential businesses and a few other things. And of course, outdoor stuff. The next tier is the red zone, and that's what we've just advanced to about 2 weeks ago. That lets businesses open at a limited capacity. For instance, gyms can now open at 10% capacity, which is great. I mean, let's face it, gyms rarely get 10% capacity filled in them anyways. And yeah, wearing a mask at the gym makes it pretty difficult to work out, but it's still great to get back to using all of the machines and making gains. Oh, and restaurants can also open now indoors with limited capacity. The way I understand it, we're probably gonna be in this red zone for at least the next few months, and then we can advance to orange, and then there's the best level is yellow. There's no green because I don't think it's ever gonna go back to the way it was. So I'm not really sure at what point we're no longer in lockdown, or even how much longer I need to call this series Lockdown Woodworking. I don't really suppose it matters, or I don't suppose it really needs a name anymore. Our way of life now is just the way it is. More and more, we just get used to this lifestyle. That's what humans do. As best as I can, I try to avoid complaining about the situation that we all share. The people who are successful in the world and live happier lives are people who learn to adapt and thrive no matter what obstacles they face. For the past 6 months, I've been trying to look at all of this as a challenge to better myself and this community. Honestly, I sometimes think the only thing worse than everything going on this year is listening to people whine about it. Of course, we all get down and frustrated at 2020, but honestly, well, nobody likes to hear people complain. Be the guy that lifts people up and spreads positivity. You'll be surprised how good it makes you feel. Positivity is really a position of strength. I started Lockdown Woodworking as a way of digging in my heels and giving myself something to focus on other than the outside world. Pivoting my channel was a bit of a risk. Basically scrapping the format of Woodworking for Mere Mortals in favor of a vlog style approach. But again, I saw the lockdown as an opportunity, and this was a challenge. The results were pretty eye-opening. Producing this kind of content means receiving a lot fewer views per video, but producing more content results in way more weekly views. My channel subscription rate shot up. As more and more people discover the channel, more people watch my older videos. In short, the past 6 months has been the strongest 6 months for Woodworking for Mere Mortals in years. Thank you all. I can't tell you how much I appreciate your support for what I'm doing here. And I absolutely love making this style of video. It's a different way of looking at what a woodworking video can be, or what it traditionally is. I find it very freeing to step outside the restraints of making a video showing me making a project from start to finish. I'm a lot less interested in telling the story of individual projects, and I'm more interested in telling the story of woodworking. There's no rule that says that every project video needs to have a beginning and an end. I mean, this is YouTube, not TV. As a side note, does it seem to you like more and more YouTube channels are starting to resemble TV shows? Anyways, I want to try to buck that trend. Plus, I've got 12 years of neatly wrapped project videos that anybody can watch at any time. This has also been a prolific 6 months in the shop, and I thought it would be fun to take a look back at the projects I've made during lockdown. It's funny looking back at all of these and realizing how many that I've forgotten about. Wow, just looking through these, that's a lot of projects. That's probably more projects I've made in 6 months than any other 6 months. So I started out back in March. I kicked off the lockdown woodworking series by making a printer stand. That was a project I'd been wanting to make for a long time. It was one that we really needed to try to save some space in that small office. And I loved the design of that. I loved having this format of video that I was able to kind of bat ideas off of you guys, and you guys helped me out a lot with how that design all came together. I had just started a brand new training regimen with my personal trainer when all of the gyms were forced to close. So one of the first things I wanted to do was try to set up a home gym. And the first project I made was that dumbbell cart. I was really lucky because I had bought those Bowflex adjustable dumbbells a few months before the pandemic broke out, because once lockdown and everything happened, buying gym equipment was almost impossible. Everybody was setting up home gyms. And so the next thing after I built that was I wanted to make a pull-up bar. And so that meant using some plumbing pipes and then figuring out a way of fastening it to my cabinets out in my shop. The next thing I wanted to add was a weight bench. And so rather than design my own, I found there was one online that had an adjustable incline bench. And so I basically just built that one, and it worked out great. I had to modify it a little bit like a month or so later, but I'm so glad I made that early on. Oh yeah, and then right after that I posted my April Fool's video. Did you see my April Fool's video, how to make a maker video? I love that video. It's one of my favorite videos I've made in this past 6 months. Now you're gonna notice that YouTube scream face thumbnail everywhere. Oh, and after that I made this small fancy box. I thought it would be helpful for people in lockdown to just be able to use some scrap wood that they might have in their shops to make a useful project. Oh, and then I tackled my messy closet with a closet organizer, and of course launched 1,000 comments wanting to know what the box is that said coordinated lingerie up at the top of the closet. I'll never tell. Oh, and I made some TRX straps for my pull-up bar. Those came in really handy. Around this time I was starting to second guess my vlog style, and I thought, ooh, I wonder if I better throw in some one-off projects, you know, for that YouTube algorithm. Turns out YouTube doesn't care. But so I did the 2x4 scrap wood puzzle, this thing right here, which I think it's just like, it's more of like a sculptural piece than anything, but it is kind of difficult to put it together. The next thing I wanted to do was to use some metal corrugated panels that had been sitting out in the back for a while. And so I made a couple of planter boxes with those, and I modified and made a new design over ones that I'd made years ago so that these could hold plants a little bit better and they weren't going to be completely filled with dirt. I think those planter boxes look great. I'm not sure what we're going to do with them once we get our yard all landscaped. We had a landscape designer come over, and he's working up a design for the entire yard right now. We're really looking forward to seeing what he comes up with for that. It's basically, we're treating the entire property around the house as a blank slate. The guy can do whatever he wants. Of course, we had a lot of things that we're asking him to do, but it'll be exciting to see what he does with that. You know, the only real goal we had is for some California landscaping, and that means, you know, deer-proof, low fire danger, and you don't need to water the stuff. And we'll get rid of the last little bit of lawn we have. I don't think there's any reason to have a lawn anymore. But it's funny because when the designer came over here to look at our yard, he saw my shop opening. He's like, oh, if you do some woodworking, I'm like, yeah, I do. And so I took him out back, and the gate back there, really the fence needs to be replaced, but the gate was really sticky. It's really hard to open. You got to just kick the thing. And what does the guy say? First thing the guy says is, wow, too bad there's not somebody who knows something about woodworking that could fix this. I get that all the time. It's like the shoemaker whose kids don't have shoes. Oh, and then I made another one-off puzzle. It was the cog puzzle. Remember this one? Then I wanted to get back into the shop and do a big improvement that I've been wanting to do for a long time, and that was to make that drill press stand over there. Out of all of the shop improvements I made for my weekend workshop course, that was the one that I didn't touch, and it's just because I don't expect beginning woodworkers to have a drill press. But I wanted to make that for myself. Again, that is another project that I was so happy to be making these types of videos because you guys helped me out so much with that design and figuring out ways to improve it. This kind of video is making me a better woodworker because it's not a one-way video. It's really much more of a give and take than the whole, here is the project I made type of video. Oh, I made a SketchUp basics video too. If you're interested in learning SketchUp, check that out. People have been asking me for that for a long time. And I've heard from a lot of people who tell me that they're designing all kinds of projects now and they always were kind of intimidated by SketchUp before then, so that makes me really happy. Ah, the knitting box. Does anybody remember the knitting box? I had actually kind of forgotten that I made the knitting box, but the funny thing about that project was I think that that's one of the projects that I'm most proud of the way it came out. It really looks great. And then it was on to making a folding tray table. That's turned out very handy. Wyatt uses it twice a week when he plays D&D online. Oh, and then we entered the cat era. I started clicker training my cats, which has worked out really well, and I thought it would be fun to start teaching them some tricks. So I made my first cat hurdle. I think I ended up modifying that 2 other times. More home improvement stuff. Those warped garden shed doors that I had, I finally got around to replacing on this show. Oh yeah, then there was the ridiculously overdramatic maker video. Oh, I made the little snapper puzzle. That was a fun one-off project. And then I got really hipster and made a record player stand for the record player my wife got me for my birthday. For a while we were using that every night whenever we would eat dinner. I'd put on an old album of mine and we'd listen to it on that. It's fun to use that, but after a while I'm kind of like, Spotify's just easier. I revisited my drill press cabinet and made that Forstner bit storage. That is also one of my favorite shop projects. And then it was a couple of months ago when Antonio got involved, we started making the shoe shine box, which is still sitting over there. That's a long ongoing project, but I really love having that kind of project. Again, just having this format allows me to do that, and I can come, we'll revisit it from time to time. Both of us have a lot of things going on with our businesses and whatever, so he works on it when he can. I try to add to it in my videos whenever I can, but I love having the flexibility of just revisiting these things at various points. Again, there is no start or end to these videos. Wait a second, we just call these vlogs, but really this format's been around for 60, 70 years, right? It's a soap opera. We're getting pretty close to finishing up the shoe shine box, I suppose. Let's see. Oh, I made a magic wand. That was kind of a fun project. I thought that might be fun to make for the kids. Oh, and then I went full-on crazy cat guy and I started my catification project. I didn't know it was going to be a catification project. Originally, I asked you, what should I do with this cabinet that's in my dining room? It's just ugly. It's too big. We don't use it. It just collects clutter. And you had all sorts of great ideas, but somebody, I don't remember who it was, said, you know, you could make that as like a neat cat thing. I was like, I like that. So it's expanded, and I've had several phases of the catification. Oh, I forgot about the bandsaw box video. Remember I was trying to recreate the bandsaw box video and update it because I made that one years and years ago, and then my bandsaw broke. Now I don't have a bandsaw. But I'm actually kind of thinking about buying a bandsaw, especially since I'm not using my weight bench and my dumbbells now that the gym is open. I can put those away. I'm not gonna get rid of that stuff because I don't know, we may go back into lockdown at some point, who knows. But I can use that space to put the bandsaw back there. Oh, and the Summer Jam. I wanna thank all of you who participated in the Woodworking Summer Jam. I thought that was a cool thing, just kind of a little community building thing where everybody posted pictures of things that they had built during a 2-day time period. Well, it's like a 3-day weekend, basically. You had to build a project, and all of those pictures are still online. If you'd like to take a look at them, there's a link down in the description. Oh, and of course, the cat tree, where I cut down a tree so that I could bring it inside and make it look like a tree. That has become Bubbles' tree. Bubbles just loves that thing, and she uses it all the time. She sleeps up on the big platform. That was a big success. Over all of the catification, the only thing that didn't work out that they really don't use, there's 2 things. It's the lower level of the first part where I made the little enclosed area. They never go in that area. And then the the bubble. I was really hoping they would like that bubble, but they don't use it. So I'm actually considering removing that section and replacing it with something else. But it is fun to watch them go up on the side of the wall on those catwalks. And I still haven't finished it all. And I know, for those of you getting tired of the cat videos, there's gonna be more. Because I need to make that bridge that goes from one side of the dining room to the other. I gotta make another platform on the cat tree too. Half of my audience right now is going, no, please, no. Then there's the other half that are the cool cat people. I made the dips bars. I wanted to make those earlier on in the lockdown, but I could never figure out a good design for them until I stripped it all down and figured out that it doesn't need to be over complicated, and those dip bars work out perfectly. I really think one of the hardest things about woodworking is finding simplicity. I just think we always try to find the most complicated or the most difficult ways to do things. It's just the way our brains work. It's hard to try to come up with the simple solutions. Oh, and then I started my router table retrofit with those drawers, which I still haven't done any more with. We'll get back to that. Remember, I'm not on any timeline here. Oh, and of course I had a few how-to videos throughout the past 6 months, but I think it's been a pretty prolific period of time. And I guess with all of that said, I wanted to just share a few thoughts about a few things that I've observed during this lockdown. First, the Woodworking for Mere Mortals and the Weekend Woodworker communities have become tighter and stronger than ever. I think I'm most proud of the YouTube comment sections on my videos. People have always been pretty friendly in this little world of ours, but the helpfulness, the level of helpfulness and goodwill has just skyrocketed since I started this series. It may sound corny, but it really has become kind of a big family. I love seeing the regular commenters on every video, and then all of the people who reply with useful and helpful information to other people who have woodworking questions. It's become really rare to receive any negative comments on this channel, and I think that's pretty amazing. Early on in the lockdown, I asked if anybody wanted a Woodworking for Mere Mortals sticker, and wow, did I hear from you. I've sent out over 1,000 of these so far, and it's just something I love doing. It's so satisfying to get mail. I mean, actual mail from real people. We just don't get a lot of that anymore. But what I wasn't expecting were all of the letters. I read every single letter that you send me, and they're all very meaningful. They all touch me very deeply. I don't feel worthy of all of that attention. I'm just a guy in a garage shooting a bunch of crappy videos. And my offer is always open. If you want one of these stickers, just send me a self-addressed stamped envelope and I'll send you one. It's just a small way I like to say thanks for watching my show. And really, I think I get more out of it than anyone. But remember, you don't have to include a note. Just a self-addressed stamped envelope is fine. My mailing address is in the description of every video. You know, I used to think that the lockdown and the pandemic was dividing people. And while that may be true in some circles, I've seen more people come together in communities than ever before. And people are forming and finding kinship in new communities. My son is involved with his D&D community. My wife is doing more and more with the knitting community. I believe that the vast majority of people in the world are good, strong, and kind towards each other. The real world is a much better place than social media and the news would have you believe. And this is something that lots and I mean lots of people have experienced by discovering woodworking during the lockdown. The thousands of people who have signed up for my online courses since March share similar stories. They were just tired of sitting around in quarantine, racking up screen time. They wanted something to do with their time, and woodworking has always been the antidote. It's a hobby that invigorates your brain and provides a fun, healthy, satisfying, and productive outlet to all of the monotony that you might experience in life. Did any of you see that documentary called The Social Dilemma? It's going around right now. Check it out. If nothing else, that movie will surely inspire you to set down the phone and step into a woodworking shop. I'm gonna guess that 2020 will be the year where more people have begun woodworking than ever before. I feel like my world has gotten much smaller over the past 28 weeks, and my projects reflect that. The projects have been much more specific to my needs in my little house and my little shop. It used to be that I was always very concerned about making sure that my project appealed to as many people as possible. I mean, that's what you gotta do if you want those searchable YouTube algorithm videos. But without that constraint tying me down, I'm free to just make things for me and my family. I know that there's hardly anybody is going to cut down a tree to adapt into a cat tree or make catwalks in their dining rooms, but what fascinates me is telling that story. Woodworking for Mere Mortals is still all about providing educational value and even how-to instruction, but without it being confined to a single project or video. The idea is that over time, watching these videos, you'll begin to understand how woodworking works and how to think like a woodworker so that you can tackle your own highly specific projects. My local hardware store has been open throughout all of this. They were from the very beginning considered an essential business, and they have been really important for me to keep making videos. That hardware store is a great community resource, and everyone who works there is always just super helpful and super friendly. It's pretty much the only retail store I go into anymore. Everything else I buy online and have delivered. Except lumber. I still have to go to the big orange box store, but I try to avoid it as much as possible. I guess more than anything, the past 6 months has been a time of introspection for me. Like everybody else, I kind of went through that phase of frustration early on, but I quickly realized that the best way to avoid getting depressed and losing sleep is to double down on what I love doing. Woodworking empowers us. Woodworking is not about stewing over things that we have no control over, but having power over every board we cut and every project we make. Woodworking isn't about wallowing over the past and what could have, should have happened, but instead, woodworking is about the future, planning for the future, and our workshops are a place to fully engage with the present. If you haven't taken the plunge yet, I'd like for you to start by downloading my free guide to setting up a shop in any space for less than $1,000. You can get it over at mytoollist.com. Hey, I want to thank all of you for hanging out with me over these past 28 weeks. You've not just helped me get through them, but you've inspired me to continue. Look, I have no idea what my 1 year later video is gonna look like, but we'll find out together. See you later.